Why do people fall in love with you? It's a question that lingers in the back of many minds, especially after those powerful, magnetic connections that seem to come out of nowhere. Some people walk into your life and are immediately drawn to you as if pulled by some invisible thread. You felt it, haven't you? That inexplicable chemistry with someone who sees you differently, whose eyes linger a little longer, whose presence feels electric. Is it your appearance? Your sense of humor? Your intelligence or confidence? Or could something much deeper be unfolding, something unseen, operating silently beneath the surface of awareness? Carl Jung, one of the most influential thinkers in psychology, didn't believe in accidents when it came to love. For him, romantic attraction wasn't some random act of fate, nor was it entirely based on personality traits or physical appeal. Jung believed love, true, soul-shaking love, happens for profound psychological reasons. When someone falls in love with you, it's not just about who you are on the outside. It's about what you represent to their unconscious mind. And that idea changes everything. We like to romanticize love as spontaneous, a lightning bolt, a chance meeting, a spark that ignites from nowhere. But Jung saw love differently. He believed that every connection, even the sudden and passionate ones, has its roots in the psyche. That electric pull you feel towards someone? That sense of familiarity or destiny? It's not magic. It's your unconscious recognizing something, responding to something buried within you that the other person activates or reflects. According to Jung, each of us carries around a hidden world inside, a shadowy collection of repressed emotions, unfulfilled desires, and forgotten parts of ourselves. These aren't just vague feelings. They're psychological fragments, buried truths that long to be acknowledged. And because they're unconscious, we don't usually see them in ourselves. We see them in others. This is what Jung called projection, the act of unconsciously placing our inner world onto someone else. Think of it like this. Deep within you lives an internal cast of characters, parts of you that you've ignored, denied, or simply haven't developed yet. When someone comes along who embodies one of those hidden parts, your psyche lights up. You don't just like them, you feel drawn to them, magnetized. They seem to represent something you didn't know you were missing. But the truth is, they're not just showing you who they are, they're showing you who you could be, or maybe even who you've always been, but have never allowed yourself to become. Imagine someone who has spent most of their life playing it safe, always in control, always cautious. They don't take emotional risks. They protect themselves. Then, one day, they meet someone who is wild, expressive, emotionally fearless. That person dances through life with intensity and vulnerability. Suddenly, the cautious person feels a deep attraction. But it's not just because the other is charming or charismatic. It's because they awaken something inside that has been dormant for years. The expressive person represents a lost or suppressed part of the cautious person's psyche, the part that longs to be free, open, fully alive. And now flip that. Someone may be drawn to you for reasons they can't quite explain. Maybe they see something in you, something radiant, mysterious, grounded, or wild, that stirs something deep within themselves. They might tell you they love your energy, your presence, your passion. But what they're often truly responding to is the version of themselves they see reflected in your eyes. You become a symbol, a mirror. Not because you're trying to, but because your being resonates with something sacred and missing in theirs. This dynamic explains so much about the intensity of romantic attraction. We're not just falling for people, we're falling for reflections of our own psyche. But here's the twist. The more unconscious the projection, the more powerful and the more fragile it becomes. Because when someone projects an ideal onto you, they're not really seeing you. They're seeing a version of themselves that they've lost or haven't integrated. And once reality starts to replace the fantasy, once your human flaws and complexities start to show, the illusion can shatter. The love, which once felt so eternal, may start to dissolve. This is where many relationships start to falter, not because either person has changed, but because the projection has faded. What remains is a real person, not the dream the psyche once projected. And that transition from projection to reality is where true love either begins or ends. If both people can see each other beyond the unconscious expectations, love can deepen and grow into something grounded and authentic. But if the bond was built only on the fantasy, it may crumble under the weight of truth. Jung went even deeper into this mystery of attraction with two powerful archetypes, the anima and the animus. These are inner images of the opposite gender that live within all of us. For Jung, every man carries an internal feminine image, his anima. Every woman carries an internal masculine image, her animus. These aren't just random preferences or personal ideals. They're shaped by early relationships, especially with our parents, and by the collective symbols we inherit from culture, myth, and the human psyche. When someone matches or seems to match our inner archetype, we fall hard. It's like finally meeting a character from our dreams in real life. We feel understood, seen, awakened. But again, what we're really responding to is not always the person themselves. We're responding to our inner image of them. It's as if they've stepped into a role that's already been written in the script of our unconscious. That's why love can feel so otherworldly. It's not just emotional or physical. It's archetypal. The person you love may be carrying your anima or animus. They stir something ancient within you, something mythic. They speak to a part of you that words can't reach, and that's why the connection feels so deep, even if you've just met. But this kind of love, too, has its shadow. Because if you remain unaware of the archetype, you risk mistaking the image for the person. You might cling to them, idolize them, or expect them to fulfill something they were never meant to. And when they can't, or when they show their own wounds and imperfections, you might feel betrayed, disappointed, or disillusioned. Not because they failed you, but because the projection no longer holds. This is the paradox of love, according to Jung. We fall in love with others, but what we're really falling in love with are parts of ourselves. Sometimes it's the part that we've forgotten. Sometimes it's the part we've never dared to become. And sometimes it's the part that got buried beneath years of pain, fear, or social conditioning. Love, then, becomes a journey of self-discovery if we're willing to look beyond the surface and into the mirror that the other person offers. So why do people fall in love with you? It might be your laugh or your kindness. It might be your intellect or your strength. But on a deeper level, it's because you represent something they need. Maybe it's your lightness, your groundedness, your wild heart, your emotional depth. Maybe it's the way you make them feel seen. Or maybe, just maybe, you awaken a part of them they didn't even know was asleep. You become a living invitation for them to reclaim something they've lost or to meet a part of themselves for the very first time. And that's the beauty and the burden of being deeply loved. Because sometimes they're not just loving you, they're loving themselves through you. Over time, the archetypes we carry, those deep, ancient blueprints of the soul, become more than mere psychological constructs. They grow roots in our emotions, coloring the way we see the world and the people in it. We carry them unknowingly, like invisible ink on the pages of our lives. And then, seemingly out of nowhere, we meet someone who fits those patterns with uncanny precision. In that moment, it can feel as though the universe has conspired to bring us together. The pull is undeniable, the connection electric. It's as if some secret door within us swings open, revealing something we've been waiting for without ever knowing it. That meeting feels like fate, like something scripted long before we were born. You look into their eyes, and it's like looking across time. There's a haunting familiarity, a feeling that you've known them in another life, or perhaps many. You tell yourself, This can't be random. You call it soul recognition. You call it destiny. But Carl Jung would urge us to pause. He would say, this isn't destiny, at least not in the way we think. It's not proof of a cosmic soulmate ordained by the stars. What you're feeling is the psyche seeing itself. It's your unconscious meeting its own design in the form of another human being. That mirror-like recognition? It's your internal world projected outward. You may not look like the person they imagine. You may not act like them either. But something in your essence speaks to them, something archetypal. You awaken a powerful image in their unconscious, a pattern they've been unknowingly shaped by for years. And when that pattern is suddenly brought to life through you, the emotions that surge up can be overwhelming. It feels spiritual, mythic, even sacred. But it's not really about you. Not yet. It's about the symbol you've become inside their inner world. And that's both magical and dangerous. When we fall for a projected image, we're not really falling in love with a person. We're falling in love with a fantasy. A psychological sculpture crafted from longing, memory, and myth. The one we fall for becomes a screen upon which we project everything we desire and fear. And when you are the object of that projection, you may be adored, idolized, even worshipped. But you're not truly seen. You're playing a role in someone else's inner drama. A role that was written long before you ever appeared. Eventually, the mask begins to slip. The real you, the beautifully imperfect, complex, contradictory you, starts to emerge. And the fantasy begins to unravel. What once felt divine begins to feel human. What once felt perfect becomes complicated. The spell breaks. Conflict surfaces. Disillusionment sets in. The emotional high of projection fades, and in its place is confusion, sadness, or even resentment. The person who once adored you now struggles to reconcile the image with the reality, and you are left wondering what happened to the magic. This is why so many intense relationships start like fireworks and end in emotional ag. They weren't built on understanding. They were born from projection, an unconscious attempt to resolve something old through someone new. But no real person can carry the weight of an archetype forever. No one can sustain being a god, a muse, a savior. And that's not their fault. It's not yours either. It's the nature of projection. It elevates you, then punishes you for being human. Still, Jung didn't see this as failure. In fact, he believed it was a necessary part of psychological evolution. Love, he said, is not just an emotional event. It's a transformational one. Every person we fall for, especially the ones who shatter us, becomes a mirror, reflecting not only our hopes, but also our wounds, our shadows, and our unrealized selves. Some people come into our lives to reflect our hidden strengths. Others bring to the surface our deepest fears. Some awaken dormant creativity. Others stir insecurities we've tried to bury. But all of them, without exception, serve the same purpose, to push us toward wholeness. When someone falls for you, it often feels like they're discovering a miracle in your presence. And in a way, they are. But the miracle is not really you. It's what your presence has ignited within them. You've touched a part of them that longed to be seen, and in doing so, you became more than a person. You became a symbol, a catalyst, a psychological turning point. And you've likely experienced this too, falling for someone who seemed to hold the missing piece of your soul, someone who changed you forever. The people we fall for, especially those who stir something deep, are not random. Jung believed these encounters were often synchronistic, events that seem coincidental on the surface, but are deeply meaningful beneath. They arrive at exactly the right time, reflecting exactly what we need, even if we don't understand it in the moment. Sometimes these people awaken what has been sleeping inside us. Sometimes they teach us hard truths. And sometimes they break our hearts, because that's the only way we finally see what we've been avoiding. Not every relationship is meant to last. Some exist only to shatter illusions, to disrupt the pattern, to shake us out of our unconscious repetition. And that's not failure. That's evolution. The end of a relationship doesn't always mean it was wrong. Sometimes it means the lesson has been learned, the pattern seen, the image integrated. So why do people fall in love with you? Because you reflect something they desperately need, or you awaken something they've forgotten. Either way, the love they feel is less about you and more about their own psyche attempting to evolve. And the same goes for you. You fall for those who mirror your missing parts, those who embody your inner stories, those who, knowingly or not, hold the key to your next chapter of growth. But if you remain unaware of these inner scripts, these psychological projections, you risk falling into the same story again and again, attracted to the same type, caught in the same emotional pattern. And with each repetition, the disillusionment grows deeper. You may start to believe that you're just unlucky in love, but the truth is, your unconscious is trying to get your attention. It's trying to show you something you haven't been ready to see. Jung's answer to all of this was simple, but powerful: awareness. Once you become aware of the archetypes, the patterns, the inner images driving your attractions, you stop looking for someone to complete you. You begin the real journey, the journey of becoming whole within yourself. And from that place, love changes. It becomes quieter, but deeper. No longer driven by fantasy or fear. No longer a quest to fill a void. It becomes a meeting of two whole people. Real, grounded, free. In the end, the greatest love isn't about finding the perfect other. It's about uncovering the parts of yourself that have been waiting patiently in the shadows, waiting to be loved back into life. You don't just fall in love with others. You fall in love with the version of yourself that they awaken. So the next time you feel that electric pull towards someone, or someone feels it towards you, pause. Look deeper. Ask yourself, what part of my soul is waking up right now? That question might just change everything.